if you were able to go into the show tags, call this episode "Get Dignified by Getting Certified," you have the right to get licensed. Now, I know what you're saying. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. However, and let's just be frank about this, because I really don't like talking about classism and things of that nature. However, in this country, we all know that there's a difference when, you have a skill that is marketable, even if you're an electrician, and even if you're blue collar, but you actually have a viable skill. There's a difference in your earning power, right? Because you're getting paid for not what you do, which is really task oriented, but for what you know. If you can get paid for both, that is putting you on the path to financial sustainability and hopefully independence, because you're able to create your own. So the reason I came up with that topic is because a lot of people working dead-end jobs that are going absolutely nowhere. I mean, they are on a path to nowhere, partly because, either because they don't know what options are out there for them, because they think that they can't do certain things because they didn't have an apparent aptitude when they were in junior high school or high school. Because most people learn what their gifts are early on, but in some cases, because too busy sometimes, they don't get a chance to fully realize what their potential is. So it's very important, if you have children, to really pay attention to find out what their skills and abilities are early, so you can nourish them and cultivate them, so that way they can take advantage of what the marketplace may offer. So, once again, we're going to talk about this. I wish I had the God, Dawood, or Hola Kyle. I believe he's going to call in, perhaps. So, let's talk a little bit about this. So, many people, when they decide, after high school, what are they going to do? The common answer is, go to college, 4 years, study hard, get good grades, and you'll be okay. Meanwhile, you're taking out $100,000 in debt, right? Not good, right? Not really a path to success, if you ask me, just because from the standpoint of, going into debt, $100,000, the median income in this country is approximately, let's call it $50,000, okay? So if you're going to debt $100,000, but your median income is only $50,000, you're really in the hole. And they're going to stretch that debt out, and they usually do it over a 10-year period on a student loan at, let's call it a 6.9% interest rate on average, right? So, I guess the problem is, why are we being fed this line of just, I hate to say this, garbage? Like, is it that the powers that be want to see you indebted as a debt slave from early on? Maybe. Is it the fact that for-profit institutions see it fit to make sure that you become indebted to them so you can keep coming back to them? You don't really get the kind of guidance that you really need in many cases. So what is it? I think it's all of the above. I think it's one more thing that basically keeps you in the dark and keeps you unsure of yourself. Don't even give you the confidence to go out there and do what your heart desires. So we're going to talk a little bit about what some of the options are for people who are in that situation, okay? First of all, when I talked about getting dignified by getting certified, I meant just that because there are some occupations where, you may not necessarily need a 2-year degree, okay? Some people say, really? How is that possible? Well, because there's certain types of, I wouldn't say they're tasks, but they are highly specialized. And in a lot of cases, it's really one of those situations where, you know a specific skill, but it's a high demand because of demographic reasons, whether that be because you're talking about healthcare, the baby boomer population. We got, I believe the number was cited, and, I'll have to check on this, but I believe that a new baby boomer, someone over age 55, comes online about 10,000 a day. That sounds like a crazy number, but we have one of the largest aging populations. So with that being the case, there are occupations out there that are catering to that, specifically in healthcare. So if we were to look at what are some of the opportunities, let's take just something random. For instance, you have in the healthcare field people who look at heart diagnostic equipment and imaging equipment, okay? very high demand occupation, and actually in a lot of the schools that offer it at the technical school level, sometimes there's a waiting list because they are known to be high demand occupation. But high demand occupation is something that comes from Bureau of Labor Statistics as well as for the Department of Labor. And you really can dig into those and just kind of see, wow, this is in demand, this is in demand. And, determine, wow, well, I can get this as a skill set, and because it's only a 6-month accredited certification course, maybe I can get a secondary or tertiary skill set to ensure that I have gainful employment until I can figure out how I can get out on my own. So with something like that, it actually gives you the opportunity to perhaps get a living wage. Now, I define a living wage because, there's a technical definition, but I hate to get really technical in certain cases. Certain cases being technical is necessary, but to me, I look at living wage as an income that you can earn that helps you pay for basic necessities as well as have surplus income, disposable income to be specific, right? So the income that you have after the basic living expenses and taxes, okay? So why is that important? Because that is a foundation for wealth creation and independence. Because if you don't have disposable income, how can you really build something? So in other words, I know people, I'm from the New York area, I know people that live hand to mouth. I know people that are living a subsistence lifestyle because they have to spend so much money on just their rent. I mean, you're talking $2,000-$3,000 for rent. You might be making $75,000, no children, and you're struggling. I mean, you know how much they take from taxes in a city like New York? Like, if you look at the state, federal, and local taxes, man, it's like almost 4 or 5% just in the city alone. So take that $75,000 and knock that down to about $71,500, and then you take the state, which is at about another $7.5. I mean, by the time you get to it, dude, you're down to really what we're talking about with the federal tax rate. Even after you take a standard deduction, you're down to about $60,000, right? And that's net. Now, don't try to get cute and take money out of 401k and do an IRA and, plan for a Christmas club. You're really working off about probably maybe $48,000. And that $48,000, now you're talking about having to pay 12 months rent. So if you had to take and pay $2,000 a month for the rent, you're down to about $24,000, right? That doesn't include your personal upkeep. It doesn't include your transportation costs, your food, other incidentals. I mean, so you may be lucky if you got $10,000 left over, right? And you better be really careful with that because entertainment in a city like New York will eat you up. You might go to the bar and spend, I don't know, on a round of drinks, $150, and that's just on a weekend. Wow! So let's multiply that. Imagine if you spent $150 2 weekends a month. Let's be generous. Let's not say 4 weekends because some people I would think don't go to a bar every weekend. But when you work in the city, you're under a lot of pressure and you have a job and a boss is a prick that really doesn't care about you, but puts a lot of undue stress on you. You're probably going to drink. I'm not a drinker, but I know people that do. And so you're talking about probably just on that alone, you might spend, yikes, $3,600. So now you're down to, oh, wow, about $6,400. Man, so what do you do? So good financial planning says you need to have 6 months of living expenses? Because in a city like New York, if you lose your job, if you're making $70,000, it might take you 6 months or more minimum. So you don't even have enough really to have an emergency fund. Yikes. Very scary. So that's what the importance of having a living wage. It keeps you more than a step away from being in poverty. That is what that's all about. So we'll talk more about that. I'm looking to invite Kyle on to the show, but he said he might call in, so I'm going to be sending out some notices to some people. So when we talk about certification is different than a degree, a diploma, It's just that it is something that gives you, because when something's certified, right, like when you get certified results, that means that there's a governing body that says that you are permissioned to perform certain duties, tasks, job functions, because there's some type of quality control process that allows you to go out and get employment opportunities as a result of that. So what we'll talk more about is, how do you get certified? Where are some of the sources to get certified? Well, it's a very little known fact to some, maybe not to others, that in many states you have what's called the Workforce Investment Act that's usually monitored by either the Unemployment Office, the Employment Security Commission, as well as other third parties. And the reason I say other third parties is what I'm finding out is that specifically in the state of North Carolina, where I'm at, they actually have, and this sounds crazy, but they actually have contracted certain services out to bring down costs. So certain functions that the state used to take care of, they've hired third parties, or they're working with third parties to reduce costs, also while cutting benefits. And when they look at who's eligible for these programs, they have a litany of things that they look at to determine, is there truly a need, financially, and then they put you through a battery of things to see if, you're going to be a good fit for it. They want to see what your job searches have been like, all kinds of stuff. So it's very important that we understand the nature of the beast when we talk about this certification process, because in many cases you may be eligible to get this information for free. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I would love the opportunity to get something for free. Okay? So, with that being said, if you get an opportunity to have the federal government, state government, anyone to pay for something for you, take advantage of it. Don't be one of those people who say, I don't want to use the money because I really don't need it. Look, if you've been working, you've been paying taxes, use it. Doesn't make sense. Say, well, when I really, really need it, I get it. Well, by the time you really, really need it, maybe too late. And if you got children, you really can't be playing. You need to use every resource at your disposal ASAP. Don't get fooled into this, well, there's plenty of resources. It's just choices that governments make. And I'm talking specifically the United States. State level, they have a little bit more budget constraints, namely because, they have certain amendments in their constitutions that require them to have a balanced budget. But even that's not always, they're not always held to that. So, let's take a look at what this really entails. Now, if you have access to Google, okay, you can look some of this stuff up. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the information age. I'm not a tech person at all. In fact, I'm an email hoarder. I think I talked about this yesterday. I probably got 150,000 emails. Don't ask me why. I don't hoard stuff, but I hoard emails. It's my thing. Everybody's got something. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I got to have something. So I hoard emails. I'll be first to admit that. People laugh at my email inbox because it's like shows 100,000 on one account, and then there's more than that. It's like, shallow water. If you look a little deeper, there's more to it than meets the eye, because I joined it up with an old AOL account and merged them, and I don't know if it's self-cleansing now, but it's probably got 150,000 emails. But, I would say using Google and then maybe Bing, your first two lines of defense. You can easily go on here and look up things like Bureau of Labor Statistics high demand occupation list, right? And there'll be a couple of links. Just do a little bit of searching, and then you don't need to get granular, get down to the state level necessarily, unless if you're in an average state. When I say average state, I mean it has a certain demographic mix. If you're talking about like a Montana, no one's living in Montana. Let's just be serious, right? No one's really living in Montana. But, let's just talk about like the average state like a Pennsylvania or, Florida is not really average because it's a very large state. But let's talk about Pennsylvania, Ohio, places like that where they got like 9, 10, 11, 12 million people. You're going to have a decent demographic mix. Things differ there, but, for instance, in Ohio and Pennsylvania, they have some of the oldest populations there. So what does that mean? There's going to be services that this older population needs, right? Which, like I said, healthcare is one of the fastest growing segments of the economy. I mean, healthcare has outperformed in the stock market, I want to say 20 to 30% year-over-year growth, and that's not a coincidence at all. So observing patterns, understanding how cycles and economies change will keep you ahead of the curve. So think about it, okay? If you're in a place where you have a lot of health care and you have a lot of elderly people, and elderly people, they may have not made the best choices on what they ate when they were younger and stuff like that, but they want to live. They got grandchildren. They got all kinds of stuff into their life upon them. And it's only fitting that they, get an opportunity to see those things through, right? We all want to see what our hard work and the fruits of our labor and loins have brought to us. So I would say those are good targets, looking at demographics in your area, looking at educational opportunities, also looking at, what are the prospects for growth? Because it's one thing to get into the profession, but where can you go? Where really can you go from there, right? I mean, once you become, say, a radiology tech, right? So you're looking at all these x-rays and stuff, boring. I would venture to say that if you did that for long enough, you'd probably be bored out your mind, right? I mean, because you gotten to the point where you've got your basic needs met, right? You got, stuff lined up for your children. If you've got your spouse, you're able to be a significant contributor to your household. So at that point, it's really about taking it to the next level, right? Because we don't want to get stagnant. You don't want to get bored. You want to be able to do something. And it's not greed. It's just you want to be more fulfilled, right? Being more fulfilled for some people means different things. But if you have a family, nothing's more fulfilling than seeing your family enjoy, the hard work that you put in, right? And helping them to enjoy, what it is that you've been able to do. So once again, I want everyone to really take a look at what are you doing right now. And when I say right now, I don't necessarily talk about this time of night. I mean, what are you doing with your life? Are you happy? And how do you define that happiness? Not by money, but are you at least satisfied? Because I think there's something that's like a taboo word in this culture, being satisfied. I think being satisfied is a great thing, but can you really be satisfied if you're struggling, if you're barely making it, if your kids want to do something and you can't do it because there's constraints? And then we all have limitations, right? We do. I mean, because we're human. But are you really doing as much as you could? And I get it, you're tired. You're dog tired. You're working your ass off. You don't know what tomorrow brings, the drama that's going to go on. Someone's going to cut you off on the road. It's just endless possibilities, right? But at the end of the day, what are you doing to improve your situation? Because it's one thing to complain about it. It's another thing to, come up with solutions and come up with a plan and decide I'm not going to take this anymore, right? But what are you doing about it, right? Because at the end of the day, we can all bitch about something, but what are you doing to change the situation? It's a question. And it's kind of at the heart of what we're saying with BIO is that, you can take the crumbs that has been given to you, or you can decide, you know what, I want more because my family deserves more, right? who deserves more than your family? Your friends, right? That's secondary on this with your family. Like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to say to your little one that I helped build that? Or to say, hey, this came from a collaborative effort, right, from others. I would love to be able to say I'm part of something that was monumental. I think a lot of people like to say that. Basics. Let's be realists. Like, what are we doing right now to improve the lives of our children and perhaps our future grandchildren, our posterity, our progeny, our offspring? And I know I'm just using a bunch of words here right now, but you get the message. You get the drift. What are we doing? There's so much knowledge that's yet to be attained. And what we know is limited. What we don't know is infinite. I want you to hear that again. What we know is limited. What we don't know is infinite. And when you think you have it figured out, that's when you're wrong. Because, I believe that there are things that happen in your life that will either propel you forward or you'll be irreparably broken for life. So the only way that you can ensure that you win and know what's important now, which is your family, your friends, is for you to make sure that you're doing everything you can, move the ball forward. So whether that means, if you're working at your local greasy spoon or fast food restaurant and you got kids to feed, dude, you can't feed the kids off $10 an hour, man. I talked about this yesterday. There's women out there that that they may be working their jobs, but there's more available for women. Let's just call a spade a spade. If you are a man, you should not be working to make $10 an hour to take care of your kids. Yeah, I'm calling you out. I am. I really am. It's one of those situations where you have to say, you know what? I have a child. I love my child. I need to figure out a way to do better for them. Now, I understand you have situations. There's people who did a bit or two, right? And now you want to get your life together, and you will have to start from somewhere, right? But in addition to that, we have to take accountability and realize that, at the end of the day, once you get to a certain age, no one really cares. This is a cold hard fact. No one really cares. Like, you made mistakes, you got kids, you got to feed them. Because your kids don't know nothing about Daddy didn't feel good today. All he knows is that they're hungry. And I think we have a caller here, and I believe I know who this is, but I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Last 47763, what's going on?
Yeah, this is Kala.
The guy Kala, how you doing, man?
What's going on, brother?
Good. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Kala Genesis with us tonight. Like I said, I'm feeling this is normally his time slot, so we appreciate you taking some time to call in. I didn't tell everyone. I didn't tell everyone about your family emergency. I don't know if you want to get into it, but we just said we
at a later time. Right now, I just want to.
Okay.
I don't want to put that out there. So we can focus on stuff.
Okay. All right. No problem. So, all right. So you saw what I put out there for the show topic, and I've been kind of just doing this off the top of the dome. This is my equivalent of a freestyle because we put this together in about 15 minutes. So realistically, this was just something that we, I had plans for next week, but like I said, when I found out that we didn't have a show that was going to go on tonight, I decided to move this topic up a week. And so I talked about getting dignified by being certified, right? And the information that's out there for people who want to improve their lives and making $10, $12 an hour, they're stuck in a dead-end job. Now, also the other part of what I put in is getting certified, but getting licensed. And getting licensed is important because someone who, and I talked about, I'm not big on classism, but we all know that, when you have a certain occupation or profession, it affords you certain opportunities. So, for instance, you can go from being a blue-collar worker to being a white-collar worker just from getting an insurance license. Can you not?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, matter of fact, that's what I did. I went from blue-collar to white-collar professional, and it was real, and I learned a whole lot about my whole perspective of the world changed when I went from blue-collar to white-collar, and I basically learned about laws. I learned how important laws are, how important regulation is, how important fiduciary is, how important responsibility is, and how important protecting consumers, and how integrity. All those things that are building blocks for anybody that's going to build a successful business. You have to have all those things. I had no idea what it took to basically make this world work until I got into insurance. How you got everything is there for a reason. Everything is done for a reason. And I hate to say this, but too many of our people, we don't. And let's put it like this: there's too many of our people, for some reason or another, don't like laws. They don't like laws. Oh, the law, this and because we've always been on the receiving end of being oppressed by laws. So we don't. I think Mr. Dawood's having a show called "Don't Throw Out the Baby with the Bathwater." We have a mentality where we think anything to do with law enforcement. I remember one time I seen this one lady. Right, this is before I knew anything. This is back in like '96, Mayman March era. Right, a sister came into in Norfolk, the 35th Street bookshop, Brother George's shop. Anybody from Norfolk knows who Brother George was, the late Brother George. He used to have a bookshop. Him and Sister Ray, they were really, really good Pan-Africanists in the movement and everything, world-renowned. They had a self-improvement shop. Well, we used to get in there rapping and everything. Well, one sister comes in one day and says, I do inspections on people's property, stuff like that, and I hand out tickets. And she was like, I get this all the time where people are like, oh, you working for the man, this and that, you oppressing your own people, because she's telling people, giving tickets to people for cutting their grass, picking up trash in front of their house, and all stuff like that. You working for the man, this, that, and the other thing. You the white man saying you do the dirty work and stuff. She said, well, I want to know. And then, had I known what I know now, I would have basically said, yeah, you're right, sister. I gave the whole thing where those people are oppressed and the cities are taking their money and oppressing them and all that. You got to stand their side of you and everything. Now I don't think like that. And when you live on the other side, when you're in a position of power in life, and you're basically responsible for people's money, their lives, and you're in the position of authority a little bit. You have a more authoritarian position, and you're in a trusted position because you're a licensed professional, and you have a responsibility to the state to be compliant and everything. Your whole perspective on life changes, and I think going forward and building any type of movement, we need people that are more management oriented or management material, and people who think in the terms of being long term. What's the responsibility? And this is what you're going to have to do. This is the way it is. You don't have to know it. Why do you have to be dragged into court when you're speeding? Because that's the way it is. Why don't the judges throw it out and say, okay, no, have a nice day? No, you're going to pay for it. The system has to work. So that's what I learned. Why we have these things in place. That's just what I wanted to say about that.
Okay, fair enough. Now, with the insurance industry, I tell people this all the time. Like, if you take the initiative to go out and get licensed as an insurance agent, there's a higher probability that someone will hire you. So, so for instance, so if you go as an 18, 19, 20-year-old and you don't have the experience, but you've gone and done the due diligence to
and you learn
a
whole lot about what doing insurance is an excellent way. You probably learn more about business and how the business world works. Just by learning the insurance structure, the financing, all the things that insurance is everything we do in the world is based on insurance. You have to have insurance. Insurance companies finance industrial projects and finance infrastructure projects. And when you basically understand why do people pay a little bit of premium, they get a big payout. Well, how did insurance companies make their money? When you understand how insurance companies loan money to banks, they loan money to governments, they loan money to real estate developers, and all these things get paid back because the insurance increases its solvency. When you understand that basic thing, then you understand, well, that's how the world works. So that's why some people are rich and some people are powerful. That's how they got their initial wealth. When you learn so much just by doing insurance, how the world works, how banking works, how finance works, how mutual funds work, what it's all about. So it's basic things across the world. What is FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance, or whatever that's called? What does that mean? Your money's insured up to a certain amount. All these things come to you when you just do just one thing, just become a licensed insurance agent and work in the insurance industry for a few years. You learn so much, that you can branch off into other things, and you could conquer other things just like that. You could pick up banking. You understand basically you understand the basics of finance and business, and you could pick up banking and all other things. You can even pick up engineering, because there's a science behind everything. When you learn the basic science behind insurance, you could figure out pretty much any sort of science there is, any sort of field you want to go into.
And the thing with getting licensed, like I said, it's a credential. It's an actual credential that you can verify, that you can put on your resume, because in a lot of cases, people who don't have a lot of work history, that's the one form of discrimination that's out there is, to a certain degree, age, because, on the early part of your career, unless you've invested in that glorious 4-year degree, which I'm being facetious about that, and there's certain professions that require a 4-year degree, like being an engineer.
Right.
You can't be an engineer without a 4-year degree, and
right.
it's a very difficult
road
to go down. Yeah, neurosurgeon. But you're talking about 12 years of school for being a surgeon, and these things require. But if you don't have a lot of resources, right, and you really want to jumpstart being a professional, you can start. There's people who start in insurance as young as 18, and they grow, and then once they've amassed a certain amount of business and the company sees that they're going to be a producer, now the insurance companies can help you go to school because they usually will have tuition assistance programs if you go work for an insurer directly, because there's several different routes.
You could become a major executive, become an underwriter. An person who goes to school become an underwriter. The insurance companies have financial departments, where they branch off into other things, other different products they do. They have variable annuities that they sell and stuff like that. And so, therefore, just with an insurance license, you could branch off. And also, if you're an independent insurance agent, you can become a general agent and build a downline of insurance agents under you. You could even open up your own agency, incorporate your own agency like I have, and you could basically hire agents on payroll to basically make outbound calls, and you pay them a salary, and you're growing a book of business. See, let me explain something. Like, if people listen to the show, when you have a book of business, insurance company is based on a book of business. That means people that's on your book that you're getting renewals from every month. That means no matter what, every month you got a monthly revenue coming in. When you have, let's say you have $10,000 worth of book of business coming in, residual and renewals coming in every month, right? Plus overrides on your downline, right? You got $10,000 like that. A bank will look at that and say, well, you were solvent and it's and you got growth. I mean, $10,000. Let's say every month is like another $100 added onto it. You got growth onto it, right? A bank will look at you and say, well, geez, you're solvent and you got growth. They'll give you a benchmark and analytics. They'll do your analytics and saying, okay, this is your expenses. You pay yourself a salary, and you got $10,000 a month and everything, and we see the money's going there, and you invest in everything. We can give you a line of credit or give you a loan to purchase real estate, purchase a building, expand your operations. You could build a call center. We'll give you a loan right here, And then the federal government also gives you grants when you're successful or when you're a business person, give you grants and everything. When you have something, when you have a book of business, it's the easiest way. When people say, well, geez, well, how do you build a clientele and a business and everything? Well, if you open up a pizza parlor, your revenue is dependent on everybody who comes to your door. When you build an insurance and you put people on your book, that person, when you write that person's business, that person is paying you every month, whether you see them or not. You're the agent of record.
Mm-hmm.
So that means every month you're getting your thing. When your book of business, every insurance agent and agency has a book of business. You grow your book of business and everything, you can borrow against that, take loans against that. You could hedge against that. You can hedge against your book of business. So, like I said, insurance is an excellent way how to entry level business person. Excellent person to get entry level in business.
Mm-hmm. And the term that we're talking about is residual.
Yes.
Residual income. So residual income, simply stated, is putting in labor and receiving revenue continuously in perpetuity as long as the contract stays in force. So in other words, you put out effort once and you get it on to get back many times over. Right, street term.
Right, and then when you have those book of business in your system, right, when you have your book of business in your system, right, what you could do is you can call your book of business up and sell them other products. Or if you're very innovative, you could build, get so large that you have a call center where you have what they call spinners or consultants calling your book of business and say, hey, look, we see that you could add some more insurance onto your thing. We could sell you to $5 more worth of premium per month. We could add this coverage on, and you're making more money every time they add more coverage on. You're making more money. You're growing your book. So it's a growth oriented thing. If people have the patience and the time to do it, it's not get rich quick. You have to be settled, and you have to basically build a book of business. And one thing about insurance is if you're going to go into it and work for companies that do life insurance and do advanced commissions, you're wasting your time. They don't work. Insurance is for people who are going to build. When you put somebody on the book, you're looking at numbers. It's all numbers. It's a numbers game. You put somebody on the books and you're making $25 a month off of them, in residual income, right? You just scale that by, a few thousand people. And then you got $25,000 a month. So
here's the thing. For the person who's listening and saying, well, don't you have to sell? Well, yeah. Some people having a fear aversion to selling because of fear of rejection. Well, think about it. There's things in life, as a child that, you asked your parents for and you were told no, but you still ask them over and over again. Mm-hmm. And it's the same type of mentality. Which you have to look at sales from this aspect of, in some cases, if you're doing business the right way, you are actually helping that person, because there's a lot of people who are shysters out there that will just sell someone a product. They don't care about the well-being of the person. But if you have morals and you have scruples, you get into sales, you can actually affect change by helping someone. For instance, there's different types of insurances out there. There's property and casualty, right? And then property casualty has a whole litany of things that, you got marine, you got surety, you got, things under workman's comp. I mean, you got a whole host of things. And then under life insurance, you have life, accident, and health. Then you have over 65, which is like your Medicare supplement programs. And there's so much opportunity in insurance that if one decides that at a young age this is what they want their field to be, the sky's the limit. Now, will you have to work? Yes. But what's the payoff? You could potentially be building a residual income. Some of these companies, for instance, that if you go work for someone, say, for instance, like a New York Life or State Farm or one of these type of companies, the residuals that you earn, they actually will put those in a retirement account for you. And that retirement account will help you to build your own personal pension. So it behooves you to take care of those people, because you not only do you get your monthly income, right? But you're getting a potential lifetime income in the form of a pension. And insurance companies are very pensions, mutual funds, because they're very good at risk, something that the banks try to do, but the insurance companies are experts at it. In fact, New York Life, which is is actually the largest independent, I guess you would call it, mutual companies, and the difference between a mutual company and stock company insurance is the terminology. The stock company actually is usually publicly traded. A mutual company is owned by shareholders, so they're the largest privately owned life insurance company. They took no TARP funds. And if you're not familiar with TARP, TARP was the Troubled Asset Relief Program that many of the largest banks had to get into. New York Life didn't, because their assets were so solid that they didn't need it. So that says something that, during the worst financial crisis, New York Life, they actually even have some of the top-rated mutual funds by Lipper, which is a company. They actually rate mutual funds. So besides that part of it being the agent producing, Kyle talked about underwriting. There's a designation. They even have certified life underwriter. They have, for instance, in the property and casualty side, you can become an adjuster. A lot of this stuff, I told you the upside versus your, outlay. So I look at everything from a risk-reward standpoint. If you're talking about, like in the state of North Carolina, South Carolina, surrounding areas, to get the education and to get the licensing, and here's the thing, one of the other beauties, there's a national governing board over insurance that, once you get licensed, you go into a database, and they're starting to do this in more and more industries to see what kind of conduct you've had while you've been licensed, make sure you've been doing your job and being ethical. But once you get a license in one state, in many cases, you usually can get what's called reciprocal licensing. So now here's the opportunity. Depending upon which route you go, you can get licensed in one state and just pay a couple extra dollars and get licensed in 2 or 3 states. What does that do? Maybe you know someone in another state that may want to do business with you, but if you're not licensed in that state, you can't do business. So in order to, the only way to, be successful is to make an attempt. So you have to have multiple licenses depending upon what type of business that you're looking to get into. So you can actually increase your income by being licensed in more than one state. Now, there's certain states where you can't do that, like New York and California, usually states where, because they're so large and they have large bureaucracies, they want you to pay that money. They want you to not only pay the money for the licenses, but they want you to spend money on taking a test and all that other nonsense. And so they make it a little bit more difficult to try to get reciprocal license. In some cases, you just can't get it. You have to take their test and all that stuff before they'll allow you to get a license. Because they do, in many cases, because of the size of those states, they want to make sure that you know their laws, so that way you're not, doing bad business in that state. Now Texas is unique because it's a large state and it's in the South, and Florida as well. They don't put you through all the hoopla, and those are 2 states that very well could add to your ability to earn income. Besides the insurance industry, there are other industries that you can get into where getting a license, or the term commissions and licensing kind of we use interchangeably. Like, for instance, you can become a notary in certain states. Becoming a notary allows you to do mortgage loans, right, to be able to do closings. You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to interpret. You're just there to make sure the person's not committing fraud. So you can get into that and do mortgage closings. Average mortgage closing pays $75 to $100, right? It takes an hour to sign documents. So let's make sure we understand this. You're going to go to someone's house. You're going to make sure that they got their documents. All parties who are supposed to be on the loan documents, or the case may be, are there. You might spend a total between gas and printing out the documents, $10 to $20. So out of $75 to $125, you're going to have a profit of at least 3 or 4 to 1 on your money. Now, some people actually do this for a living 24/7, right? Some people just do it part-time. But you're, in essence, making the equivalent of anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour net of your expenses. So let's do the math. If you did, let's say you did 8 closings a day, right, at $50 an hour, net income of $75, you're talking about an income of in excess of $100,000 to $150,000 a year. that's realistic. Because there's ways that you can build your business just by getting on different people's lists for being available for closing. Because what happens in the mortgage business, things happen because it's life. A closer was supposed to do the loan closing. Guess what? Their kid is sick, or their kid got hit by a car. Something crazy happens. Now they need a new person to close because this mortgage company is threatening to pull business from this title company because they're not reliable. Something happens, you get to save the day. And because you save the day, maybe they refer you business, right? I mean, you have that. Becoming an adjuster. You don't have to sell in the insurance industry. Like I said, you can become an adjuster and do property and casualty claims. Getting a license is one thing. Getting in with the adjusting firms is another. I actually did get my adjuster license. Only thing with that business is, and I hate to say it, but you profit off tragedy. Like, I'm not looking for people to lose their life, but the only way that you really make money as an adjuster, that like people's property has to be destroyed, but you're there to help make them whole, right? Because in the insurance, there's a term called indemnification. Insurance is there to indemnify the individual, meaning to make them whole, not to enrich them, but to make them whole. So basically, if you have a home that's worth $150,000 and you got $50,000 in damage, well, guess what? That house is worth a whole hell of a lot less. But once you repair it back to where it was, they're made whole, and that's why you pay your insurance premium. And that's across the board in the insurance industry. The whole idea is indemnification of the individual, right? Now, other things that you can get licensed in. You could be licensed as a plumber. You could be licensed as an electrician. You could be licensed as a welder. You could be licensed as a pipe fitter, right, or certified. These things, some of these things can be done in the course of, sometimes 18 months, depending upon if you had any prior schooling that they can use as prerequisites, or, in the case of just certifications, like I said earlier, there's certain programs that inside 6 to 8 months, once you finish up with the certification program, you get the stamp of approval. If it's at a technical school, they usually have relationships out there with most of the business community, which will allow you to go in and at least get a look for an interview. And most of these schools, guess what, don't make money if they have a reputation of just taking your money and not helping you get jobs, right? So they usually cost a whole heck of a lot less. And once again, on the certification front, because you can either get a certification, you can get a diploma, or there's a degree. And usually the difference is certifications are shorter in nature, right? A diploma in that specific field, right, is usually something that, is up to, maybe a year's worth of training. It's very specialized.
Let me ask you a question. Historically, is there some stigma? I don't know what it, because I studied this years ago, and I want to ask this question. Is there some sort of stigma in our community against being, even if you have skills, blue collar, everything in our community is like, oh, go to college, get a college degree and everything like that. But yet, most of these degrees people get are worthless. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely worthless. All
right, that's a good question. That's actually
and you got white guys who drop out in 10th grade, become plumbers, and they're making six figures, $200,000 or more than black people.
We don't
understand
money. Business. We don't understand the culture of business, and we don't understand, in a lot of cases, rate of return on investment. And the reason I say this is because, as the example I gave before, I know people, right, who spent $100-something thousand on education, right, to come out making less than $50. So you owe two times more. Yeah, so you owe 2 times more than what you're earning, but the difference is they're stretching it out on a 10-year term, and they're giving you a 6.9% interest rate, which is not absolutely horrible. But let's just do the math. In a 10-year period on $100,000, I mean, my God, you might easily pay somewhere upwards of about $7,000-8,000 just in interest alone, because it's amortized and it's on a 10-year term. Like if it was on a 30-year term, you'd be talking you'd be talking like $60,000 in just interest. You know what I mean? If you paid it back on a 30-year term, but because it's on a shorter term, paying more towards principal, so it's not as bad. You know, but the bottom line is that that's a sucker deal. But no one says that because, you know, the apparatus that's in place right now allows people to go to school, spend money that they don't have, go into debt, and now they're on a conveyor belt, right? They're just on that endless conveyor belt of debt.
Brother, did you hear that article where they're saying that a lot of these colleges like Strayer and everything are being investigated because they're giving people phony degrees. Now, this will happen to me. And it's not funny because, check this out, a few years ago, back when I was working 3 jobs, working the club, working 3 jobs here, and I was making money. I was pulling money, but before I got into insurance and everything like that, you know, I was trying to I had my own small business before. I owned a car wash. I owned a restaurant. I opened a car dealership. I've done everything. Every year, every 3 or 4 years, I save my money and open up some business. You know, that's all I wanted to do is have my own business, you know. I built fences. I've done it all, you know. I had a vending machine business, pinball machine business. I had it all. Anyway, one time, in between all that, you know, before I got insurance, I'm sitting there watching this one infomercial. I'm sitting home from work one day, and basically they're telling you, you're a piece of shit. Get up there and call this school now. Get on with your life. And they show the guy. I was working a job, working myself to death, working 3 jobs, and now I went to such and such university, whatever, you know. And I'm saying to myself, my God, man, my life I felt so bad. I'm like, God damn, I got to do this. And then years later, I would see some of these same people that went for that and everything. They tell me they got a lot of debt, and they're still working like part-time jobs delivering pizza to make ends meet. And I'm saying, wait a minute. I thought that was supposed to solve the problem in the first place, you know? You know, these. I'm not saying don't go. There's some engineering schools. See, the whole thing is this. They know most people when they go in there, they're looking for something easy. You know, that's the reason why you go to these schools. You know, you want to go get something easy that you could pass, or cosmetology, or something like that. Or this is a growing field, or whatever like that. It don't seem too hard. Not a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of hands-on. And the schools sell this to people, and they're like, well, I can get my certificate, and I get dental. The perfect one's a dental assistant, you know. And people get these little certificates, and nursing assistant, whatever like that. And they get out there and they'll do the same thing. They'll make entry level $10 an hour at the most, you know, $10 $10 an hour at the most. And hey, hold on, brother. Sure. Go ahead and mute me. I got a call coming in.
Okay.
I'll get back to you in a minute.
All right. And actually,